Good morning, Theresa. How are you?
Good morning. I'm really well. And look at us. It looks like we're in branded clothing. We've really
I
tied
know.
in with our colour coordinates.
You seem to be blending into the background, so if as long as you keep smiling, we'll make sure we can still see your beautiful face while the rest of you just blends in.
Could you imagine if I had turkey teeth? They'd be really shining bright now, wouldn't they?
We're doing very well. So we're here again for another one of our podcast episodes in series three of the inner work of leadership. And today we're going to be talking quite aptly, when we've been talking about our style of clothing, we're going to be talking about leadership styles, which is great just to get a bit of a take from your side on different styles, what your preferences are, how you manage under pressure as well. It will be an interesting episode just to try and extract some of that information and those thoughts. So maybe we'll dive straight in. And I'll ask you a question on what experiences have actually shaped the way that you lead and the style that you use for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've all had managers, leaders that we've liked certain bits that they do and how they do it, and other bits that we haven't. I mean, I can remember coming up through the ranks, especially in sales, it was very targeted. I've had some real different types of leadership to pick bits out of to help me form the leader that I wanted to be. I mean, I can remember in the early days, we would rock up to sales meetings, and when we were out on the road, and literally our cars would be checked, our shoes would be checked, how we showed up, were we on time? It was a real sort of um, belt and braces type of leadership, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it because I thought I am an adult here. But in hindsight, I look back and I think parts of that were done for a reason, and I can see it now. But the way it went was done about was absolutely no, 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 thank you. And then there were other leaders that were very firm but fair, which probably
Yeah,
leader number one wasn't, and set the boundaries in place. And so you knew how far you could go. And a real simple example of this would be if you were out on the road visiting customers, and you just had to bob off and go and do something for personal reasons, like nip to IKEA. Um, he was like, just let me know. Just let me know what you're doing. It's not a problem. But then if I ask you to do something potentially outside of normal working time or what have you, I expect the same back. And that was absolutely fine. So we knew when he said jump, we would all say, how high? And we would do it because
yeah,
it came back in other ways to us. So I think it's really important that as you come through your career, you're very aware of people's styles and what they do and how they lead, and take the bits that you really like, but understand why. And also, are they effective? Because it's all well and good having nice leaders, but are they really leading, or are they just being a nice person? Because it's quite different.
yeah. It sounds like with what you're saying, there's a little bit of it's like the role modeling, isn't it? Of you take a bit of the role models that are around you, and then you pick and say which ones suit me. And which ones are, that's an interesting take
Mm.
on what you could do when you're in certain situations as well. So that role modeling becomes really important, particularly in your own formative years as a leader, I would
Mm.
say as well, don't they? So it's interesting to be aware of those different styles around you. And I guess, I mean, did you, as a leader yourself, did you have some preferences in your style?
Yeah, so I went through a real learning curve. I'm naturally a people pleaser. So I wanted everybody at first to like me, and I soon learned that actually that's not necessarily going to bring the best out in the team. Them liking me is great, but it's not necessarily going to get the job done. So I most definitely realised that it's about what's the journey we're going on as a team, and do we want to pull together so that, I think we've used this phrase before in one of our other episodes about, the whole tide rising together. So finding a way that works for different people and at different times. And in order to bring that growth into the team, it's really important to be aware of that. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I think about the different styles as well, I think part of it is nature. So it is your
Mm.
preferences naturally that are the ones that you would be drawn to, particularly under times when you're under pressure or it's chaotic situations. Then there's a natural tending preference. But it's also the nurture side of things. So it's learned behaviours, and that might be organisational culture. Of this is probably similar to you. I'm a bit collaborative in my style naturally, but it's well, if I'm in an organisational culture where it's a bit more command and control, then it means you start to move your norms over a bit more into,
Mm.
oh, the style needs to be a bit more command and control. So there's organisational culture. There's a bit about knowing your team. So the team skill, the team motivation, you might find you do slightly different styles. It's easier to be more collaborative where you've got a mature team of skill and motivation. So people who are going, yeah, I just show up as an adult and I get my job done because I know what I'm doing because I'm an expert. Versus actually people who you might need to motivate a bit more, and you might need to put some more stricter, these are your tangibles that you need to deliver, these are the objectives you need to get to. And then role modeling, I think, as we just mentioned before, is also a little bit of that learned behaviours. You start to pick the bits that you like. And then all of that, I think, starts to build your own confidence in
Mm.
what is my natural style, but what are my adaptive styles, and when do I adapt? And I think you touched on it as, depending on the people, depending
Mm.
on the circumstance, and the sort of timing that there might be as well. So it's about sort of having your own, I say, your own confidence in that adaptive style, but still keeping the direction going so that you've got some consistency. Because to me, I think as well, one of the key elements I feel important is about that consistency of
Mm.
style, trying to make sure that you're keeping, small undulations rather than big swings. Because I think if you have big swings in your style, then it doesn't lead to your team feeling safe in the space, which, if you're looking then at team growth and performance, then if they're not feeling safe, it's a harder place to grow and perform, I think, because you're always worried about, well, what's the style that's going to show up today? So that
Oh,
a
I
bit more
totally agree with
consistency.
that. I
Yeah.
think the things that really shot out to me there was consistency and safe space. It's a bit like it's like being a parent, and I'm not saying that you are a parent as a leader, absolutely not. But it's similar tactics that you're employing. You want your team to feel safe so that they can come to work, do the job they've got to do, be proud of being part of that team. There's nothing better as a leader than somebody saying, coming up to you and saying, I really want to work for you. I really want to be part of your team. I like how you operate. I like how the team runs. That's a real indication that you're doing something that's people are aware of, and they want to be part of that. And if you want people to be part of your team, hopefully that means that you are leading in a way that is motivational, in a way that is inspiring, and also
Yeah.
you're hopefully growing your leaders of the future rather than just followers. You need a bit of both. But those leaders of the future are really, at the end of the day, what we're here to do. We're here to
Yeah.
achieve our business targets, but we want to grow the team.
Yeah, and I think when we've talked before, you said, your ultimate of success is when you go, there's one of my team members that are ready to take on my job. Yes, they've
Yeah,
grown into that
yeah.
position. You've been able to be part of that journey for them as well, which is quite amazing. And then thinking about, you mentioned like your style is a bit more of the people pleaser naturally. Obviously, we've got other styles which are a bit more, the autocratic style. You've got democratic style, so a bit more collaborative, a little bit more you were talking about as your natural style, and then maybe a bit more of the laissez-faire, where it's more about the delegation,
Mhm.
and then you just get on with it. That's fine. I'll take a background seat and just let you run. If you think about sort of the different styles that there may be and what watch points there might be if you overplay. So rather than going, I'm just going to be consistent in my style all the time and I'm not going to adapt,
Mm.
and you overplay it in the wrong circumstance with the wrong person, then what would you see as some of those watch points and danger points, I guess, of doing that? And what's the alternative?
Yeah, really good question. And it's something I think as a leader you need to be very self-aware of. It's really important that you are conscious of the different styles that you naturally go to, and also those styles that you have to sort of dial up a bit in the moment. So catch yourself in a moment of pressure when things aren't quite going to plan. Who do you become? How do you lead your team? Do you go into your shell and suddenly start firing bullets out because you've gone into a bit of a blame culture rather than, okay, let's admit these mistakes. Let's see where either you've gone wrong or something in the team has gone wrong, but let's work together to get it right. Also, be really conscious of sort of trying to lead the direction and not just firing out orders. Because I think sometimes when we're under pressure and well, we see it every day at the moment, don't we, in the news?
Yeah,
There's some very big world global senior leaders that are definitely under pressure, and some are dealing with it in a very constructive, controlled way, and others are just firing bullets. And that really shows your style as a leader. And I think, regardless of what your own personal preference is, you have to be conscious of how that is then interpreted by your team. Because
yeah,
what you do will automatically, they'll often do something quite similar as well. And that you've got to be aware of what you've used the word role modeling might bring up. Is that actually going to achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve? So be very conscious in those moments of pressure and stress. Who do you become? And what
yeah,
sort of leader, and what are you dialing up, and what are you bringing down? So be very conscious of that. And also, I think some of the watch areas is, are you constantly taking credit for your team, or should you allow your team to take the credit? Because again, you want that motivational tide to ride. So think about who you are and where you're sharing the successes, and not just giving them the failures and you taking the successes. And I think we have to be really careful of that as a leader, because of course we all want glory.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's helpful you saying that. I'm thinking about as you were talking through some of those watch points where I've found it helpful, even in our conversations that we have slightly offline, is sort of the coach. So someone who's also your checkpoint or your buddy. So that could
Yeah.
be formal coaching or it could be informal coaching. And if you've got that initial self-awareness about your style, and maybe you're in a challenging environment in the workplace, excuse me, then is trying to just check yourself with what's the leader that I want to show up as today, rather
Mm.
than how am I behaving just off the cuff all the time, and just having a coach. Like I said, it doesn't always have to be a formal coach, but a coaching relationship with someone to say, this I know is my normal tendency. I can see in this situation, this is the way I'm showing up. How I want to show up is this way. And then being able to talk that through, and
Yeah.
hearing someone who then can actually, maybe observe you a bit more in the workplace. Maybe they're not a team member, but it's someone who sees the environment going, yeah, I can see you're on your watch point areas, or actually no, you're not showing up the way you think you're showing up isn't the way that's coming across at
Mm.
all. So a little bit of that buddy or that coach to help you, just look at the way that you're behaving and the perceptions in those times where maybe it's a bit more challenging, I think is really helpful.
I think that's a great idea. And let me just very quick, I know we've got to move on, but I just was thinking as you were talking about that, about what if you're not very self-aware? What happens if
Yeah,
you maybe let a little bit of arrogance slip in? And we all have it, or a bit of ego, and so we need it at times. But what happens if you're not very self-aware? So it might be really good if you haven't got somebody that you're willing to go and have that chat to. Why don't you do the simple tool that we talk about all the time about doing a 360, and send a
yeah,
360 feedback out in times of pressure, when it's
yeah.
really bad, send it out. Let's get that really raw feedback, and then do it when things are going well, and compare the two. And wow, I think you'll have your answers right there.
Yeah, exactly. I think no, it's good tips and tools of the trade, isn't it? I think Theresa, just to try and build that own self-awareness, because it does start there with every leader. I think if you understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing the same things or different things in different situations, really starts to make you self-aware, which then you're able to hold yourself or go, no, no,
Yeah.
this is the right thing to be doing in this circumstance, and I'm absolutely fine with it. But just having that self-awareness to make conscious decisions rather than reactive decisions,
Mhm.
which might not always be the best way to give your team a safe space, meet your objectives from a business point of view, if you haven't got that consistency. So yeah, very helpful. And it probably, leads us into our message for this podcast. So, from your perspective, what's the message today, Teresa?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really come out for me is that leadership isn't about personality. It's more about intention. It's about what's the intention here and being really aware, self-aware of how that intention will be delivered and the choices that you've then got to make. And I think if you bring that into mind in your leadership style, then you should be on the right tracks.
Yeah, and it sparked me with a book which I think is brilliant. It's a book by David Marquet called "Turn the Ship Around," and it's the
Mhm.
whole ethos about intent-based leadership. So it's basically about the commander of a submarine who realizes they can't learn the inner workings of every single part of the submarine, and they have to empower their team and make them leaders as well. So rather than everyone's a follower, which you tend to think, when you're in the navy or the army, that it's a
Mm.
command control, but it was about growing the leaders and saying, I need you as my team to state what your intent is, and then you know best how you follow the delivery of that intent. And all I need to do is make sure that your intent is the right intent that fits with the overall mission. So I'd really recommend that it's a good read. But there's some short videos as well, which articulate the message beautifully within a few minutes. I'm going to send you the link after this as well, Teresa.
Well,
But
and I'll try and put it onto our messaging out there. Gosh,
yeah,
that's going to
there we
test my
go.
technical skills.
But yeah, I just think intent-based leadership is it really is leader style behaviours within your team as well, rather than leader follower. So I would augment the message today on that one.
Amazing. Well, this has been a fabulous episode, episode 4. What is my style as a leader? Thank you so much, Philippa. As always, I love our chats, and we'll be back for episode 5.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Teresa.
Bye.